Hi, my name is Ashley Franklin. I'm an organizer in Los Angeles with the Labor Community Strategy Center's Community Rights Campaign, and I just sat down with the Point Breeze Organizing Committee. And so I just wanted to share with Philly that we're in the struggle with you all, and just wanted to send you words of encouragement and to stay in the struggle. So I just gave a speech, and so I wanted to share it with you all as well. About the education system and the fight in Los Angeles. So I think that when I start talking about anything, I always start with talking about how we understand the education system. And for me, I think the start of it is our education system has always been a miseducation system. It has always treated our students as docile vessels where you just feed information into them. And now you just want them to regurgitate it, bubbling in answers, and not having any critical thought or any type of real theory. And the result means that you don't get real organizers at the end of the day. So I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the conditions that we have in Los Angeles. I work in South Central Los Angeles, and one of the schools that I organize in mirrors the school that I basically grew up in. So it's predominantly Black and Latino, working class, and what we're seeing right now is a real destabilization of the school, thinking about privatization as well as the explosion of officers on campus. I can say that it has been a revolving door of teachers on the campus. 90% of the teachers, 90% are Teach for America, as well as I can say that there are more officers on the campus than there actually are counselors. So this in turn turns our schoolyards into minefields of tickets, citations, and arrests, which transform the vision of youth from being students to criminals. But we're not seeing this just in LA. We see this all across the state. Let's be clear that California is #1 in prison spending and number 47 in education spending. We have the nation's largest school police department with a $56 million budget. And with that budget, they've cited over 38,000 students in the last 3 years. And overwhelmingly, 94% were Black and Latino students. And some of the students they've cited were as young as 6 years old. So for us, we feel that this is the mass criminalization of our students, and it's a huge question that we have to answer and think about, well, how did we get here? And from my perspective, I think that the privatization of education as well as mass incarceration are both a reflection of capitalism in decline, basically, but also a clear manifestation of continued national oppression, right? And so, I think when we think about privatization and when we think about mass incarceration, there's three main things that's fueling it, right? The first one being the growing apparatus of the prison police state. The second being the attack on teachers and critical support staff's union. And yes, I know Black teachers in New York, Chicago, and Philly have been particularly impacted. And number three, which is the blatant denial of racism fueling the privatization attacks, which manifests itself in educational denial for Black and brown students. So in Los Angeles, there's a lot of hope, and there's been a real pushback and fight back. So there's been students and teachers and parents who've all gotten together to build a shared class consciousness, who've gone out and organized to build a base and raise levels of expectations, to put real pressure on the school police department to decriminalize student discipline, #1, as well as minimize, to ultimately eliminate the role of officers on campus. And from this real fight back, we've seen a change in a city code, which was the daytime curfew amendment, which once allowed officers to give students tickets, $250 tickets to $1,000 tickets for being tardy to school or not going to school. So we saw an amendment. So that amendment now has seen the result of that amendment has been a 90% decrease in truancy citations, but also a real investment in students, in the sense that there are now counselors inside of the neighborhoods that students can go to, academic counselors, to talk about how to get them back in school and engage with school. And the ripple effect of that is that there's been a decrease in overall citations by 50%, although we still have major concerns about the racial disparities we see in the tickets that are still being given out. And the second thing is, we've been working with a coalition and just passed the School Climate Bill of Rights, which does three important things. The first thing it does, it really requires the district to define and limit the role of officers on campus, so no longer allowing them to be the first responders in school discipline. The second thing is really uplifts restorative justice and PBIS inside of schools as a discipline model. And the third thing is get rid of willful defiance, which is a very broad category, from people speaking loudly to people refusing to do their work, that teachers could once use to kick a student out of class and suspend them, right? So we were able to get rid of that as a suspendable category. But we understand that with all of these advances, our work is still cut out for us, and there's still more to be done. And so we're excited that the movement is still brewing in Los Angeles and across the nation to end the school-to-prison pipeline. And the fight back is real, and it's only getting stronger. But one of the major questions that we're still thinking about is, and we're trying to raise consciousness about, is that the mass incarceration, which is connected to the criminalization of our youth at younger and younger ages, we can't keep looking at it as like a profit-driven industry. Yes, it is in some sense, but we also have to look at it as a tool for ethnocide as well.